Hello everyone, hello YouTube, and we are back again. This was my intro on my streams, now it's gonna be my intro on YouTube. I'm not gonna change it, I don't know, I just came up with it very randomly. It's been like that for a while, but yeah, Lydia Speed Lab. Right now it's 30 FPS gaming, but I'm gonna change it. There we go, we're good now. So, yeah. Today, we're gonna be talking about Lydia, and this is a very fast speed lab if you compare it to the other speed labs that I usually do for new characters, like 80 for example, right? 80 took a while, but 80 was like a different reason why it took so long, but Lydia, I more or less understand a little bit more, because I did lab her, and I understand her game plan, more or less, right? Not that much, obviously, most likely a lot's gonna change, but we can talk about her. And we can talk about how to beat her and try to beat her with chaos, obviously, right? That's the point of the speed lab. So, Lydia, this character. So this character is a very stats heavy character, and in my opinion, her neutral is very dependent on her going into heat. That's my kind of opinion on this character and how optimally she would work. Basically, if you ask me, Lydia is the kind of character that really needs to go into heat and will try her best to go into heat. And if you want to utilize her to the fullest, that's how you should play her. Because the thing about the character is that her poking is not the best. It's okay, but it's not the best. Her combo damage is really good. So if you do get good punishments, her punishment is very good, right? Not only with punishment, but block punch is also very good, both while standing and standing. So all that combines with like a decent character, which is, I'm not sure about the strength of the character yet, it's way too early. But yeah, we're going to be talking about her a lot. But first, let's talk about the neutral. I always start with the neutral, right? So when it comes to neutral, Kaz actually doesn't have that bad of a matchup against Lydia. Because, well, to be very simple about it, it's because we can launch all her lows. Every one of her lows is at least -13 or above. That means everything will be at least punishable by TP, Twin Pistons, right? So that's very good. And the other thing that's very good is that most of her lows don't have a lot of pushback, so even though our TP doesn't have a lot of range, it will still work. Most of the time it will still work. I'm just gonna give you guys an example, so I'm gonna get down back 4 for example. This is a -13 low, right? So because of the pushback not being that high, and Lydia actually going forward, Twin Pistons mostly works. It won't work in this kind of distances, right? This far, this is like the main problem of TP. But usually if you block this, it will work. And then this is the case for most of her lows. Like down 2 for example, right? Also can be launched. So this is a very good, because you know, the matchup basically lets us launch any kind of her lows, so all of her lows are way more punishable now. If you compare it to like some other characters, maybe if Lydia plays against Yoshi, they're gonna just get a while staying 4 or down back 4, stuff like that, right? So that's already good. Now the second thing that's good is that Lydia does not want to high crush that much, right? So when Lydia comes in, she usually will come in with forward 4-2s. That's the main common tool. So this forward 4-2, since it doesn't have much crushing, our main keep out tool, which is an electric, is gonna be very strong here. Because the only way a Lydia player can avoid the keep out electric is to either bait it, you know, obvious stuff, right? Just bait the electric and try to punish it. That's obvious keep out mechanics, you know, anti-keep out. But if she wants to come in while not risking getting hit by an electric, she only has to do a down 2. This is the only thing she has. And even if this hits, it's not that bad, right? It's -4 on hit for Lydia, it's +4 for us. And even if we do block it, it's a -14 low. Which means, as I said, all of her lows are punishable by TP, which is very good for us. So if you can force out something like a down 2, that's good. And any other low that she has doesn't really have high crushing, right? And as I said, she's mainly a stance-based character, not that much of a neutral-based character, in my opinion, right? Her neutral isn't that bad, but she becomes very strong when she enters stances. We will cover the stances a little bit later, obviously we will, but first we have to cover her neutral and some of her neutral tools, because those aren't bad either, especially forward 4-2, right? Obviously this is one of the strongest tools she has. Okay, so first let's cover her neutral mids, then I'm gonna do some lows, not only mids and highs basically. So first, let's get this out of the way, let's talk about forward 4-2. So forward 4-2 is a +5 mid, as you guys can see in the frame data, it's +5. And it's +5 for Lydia. which means she has mind games with the stance options. So this stance she goes to is called horse stance, if I remember correctly. So it's a horse stance, and the horse stance mix-ups apply here in +5 situations. And the thing is, the situations here and the frames here in horse stance, all of them are usually pretty damn high. So there are not real frame traps here, right? That's a slow move. 16, that's also slow, +5 situation. 17, also slow, right? And then there's the slow, which is 20, which is also slow. So the mind games here is a little bit iffy, but I'm going to talk about the mind games a little bit later. That's stance mind games, right? As I said, stance comes a little bit later, but I'm going to talk about 4-4-2 in general right now. So this move, in my opinion, is one of the best mids she has, because you don't have to force yourself to go into stance pressure. This is the strongest thing this move has, in my opinion. You don't need to press any buttons after it. Because the thing about Lydia is that she forces herself to go into stance here, right? But if you hold back, if the Lydia player holds back, you can just block. So you can't really punish this. Even if they don't do anything, they can block. Now, how does this work? So this works in all stances, by the way. And I tested this. So something like a hop kick. So I'm going to showcase this. This is her hop kick, right? Hop kick goes automatically into a stance. But on block, it's -5. So you might think, oh, it's not punishable. It's -5. But no. She forces stance on herself, right? But then how much minus is it? When I did test this, I'll show you guys as well. This is -13, which is, means you can punish with down back 1 or down forward 4, so it shows up as a punish. But something like a down forward 2, which is 14, does not work against it. What does this mean? This means that the stances need 8 frames to recover. So -5 plus 8 -13, right? So they need 8 frames to recover. And in between that, you can punish her. So in here, for example, when she's +5, you can't punish her. The only way you can punish her if she's at least -2 on force transitions. So this is another move, down forward 2, that transitions into a stance, but it's 0. So if she holds back, she can block anything. Because as I said, it takes her 8 frames to recover from stances. And both of them are the same, by the way. This stance and the cat stance, both of them take 8 frames to recover, from what I understand. So yeah, this is very, very important because that's why I think the 4-4-2 is a very, very strong move. It's not only it forces stance mix-ups, which forces you to kind of freeze up, because you can't really press it to something most of the time. But even if you do press something, it's not like you're gonna punish her if she doesn't do anything. So 4-4-2 is a very, very strong checking tool because it's a very fast mid, very, very long range, right? Obviously. Very long range. It's forward move, so if you want to make it a little bit more tracking than normal, it's also possible. So it's very, very strong. But the main way to deal with this is to make it whiff via sidestepping, right? It's very hard to make it whiff via backdashing, but you can make it whiff via sidestepping. So something like a 4-4-2, if you do sidestep it, even in like longer ranges, which is like a little bit more realistic, you have to punish it, right? Always gotta launch it. Or at least down forward 1-4. And the thing about this is that it doesn't recover that quickly. You have a lot of time to punish it, basically. You can technically sidestep this both directions, but I prefer sidestepping it to the left. I think it's a little bit easier. So, yeah. This is the main way you can avoid it. Not avoid it, but deal with 4-4-2. But other than that, as I said, it's very, very hard to deal with the move. Other than trying to sidestep it. But then you have other problems, which I will explain why it's a problem of trying to sidestep some stuff, right? But sidestep blocking in general against Lydia is very good, especially sidestep left blocking, right? But there's some situations where you don't want to do that. As I said, I'll explain those. So 4-4-2, horse stance is very, very good because of these things I just mentioned. Aside from the stance mix-up, the strongest thing in my opinion, which I think good Lydia players will do, is 4-4-2 into nothing, which is, hold back. And this is very strong. Okay, so that's 4-4-2. Now let's talk about another stance transition move, which is down forward 2. So this transitions into another stance, which is called cat stance. The other one was horse stance. This is called cat stance, I'm pretty sure. So let me actually wait. Is it? That's not my moveset. A stalking move. Okay. It is. I was right. The stalking move stance is the third one. I just wanted to make sure I was not talking out of my ass. Okay, so the cat stance mix-ups here also works if you respect her, right? So the thing about cat stance is, in my opinion, is the stance that you have to respect the least. So if anything and you don't want to respect the cat stance, it's fine. That's like the most okay stance to disrespect, like press buttons or anything basically, disrespect it. And the reason for it is because the cat stance does not have a power crush. Like, it does not have a power crush in it. So this stance cannot be power crushed, but it does have high crushing. So the 4 option is basically there for high crushing and also for low poke, obviously, right? But you have to be careful about using highs against the stance because of this move. So you have to be very, very careful about that. But you can disrespect with mids because, as I said, she does not have a power crush. What she does have is a 13 frame check with 3, which will, you know, trade with your 13 frame moves. But it's still good. It's not bad at all. Especially if you have a 12 frame mid to check with, that's gonna be very good. But guys, we don't have a 12 frame mid to check with. We do have a 1+2, but it's not a check. What I mean by a check is something like Dragunav's down forward 4, for example, which is 12, or I think Alice is also 12, down forward 4. Something like that, that can be like a decent check. So, yeah, that's for cat stance. And cat stance forced moves like down forward 2. But the thing about down forward 2 by itself is that it's also kind of like a checking move, just like forward 2 is, but it's also a countered fishing move. While on hits plus 11, you're gonna basically be forced in a stance mix-up, right? On hits, stance mix-up, so you have to guess, more or less. But on block, you can disrespect with either a jab or any kind of check like back 2, down forward 4, all that stuff. You can just disrespect her just so you don't get mixed up for no reason, right? But, as I said, you have to be careful. And the thing about down forward 2 is that it has very good track to the left. So this is one of those moves that, look at that tracking, right? That's crazy tracking. It has very, very good track to the left. So if you do sidestep forward 2s, the down forward 2 might catch you, so you have to be careful. So because of this, you might consider going to the right a little bit more. Even though sub forward 2 is a bit weaker to the left than to the right, it's still steppable both ways. So that's why it's good, right? But down forward 2 as a move, in my opinion, is very, very good because on hit it forces mix-up, and on counter it guarantees stuff. So for example, if Lydia player counters you with this, and this can happen basically. I don't know why he was blocking, I forgot to turn the block off. So yeah, this is guaranteed, which is hit engager, right? I don't know what else is guaranteed, but this is definitely guaranteed. And this is also very, very strong. So you have to be careful about stuff like that. Because as I said, Lydia basically is very strong in heat. And she wants to heat engage. She does not want to heat burst because, you know, less heat. But she wants to go into heat and heat engage. That's the strongest Lydia state, in my opinion. So yeah, that's about down forward 2 more or less. The other things that also transition into stance automatically is something like a hop kick, but I already talked about this, right? So this is punishable by -13. So it's like a normal hop kick, you just have to 13 frame punish it. It's very, very important. The other thing also that transitions and forces into stance is 1-2-2. So this is her 10 frame punish. And if you guys remember, I said that every stance needs 8 frames to recover and start blocking. And it is the same with 1-2-2. So this means that 1-2-2, even though it says -8, is actually -60. So even if a Lydia player does 1-2-2 and hold back, tries to block after 1-2-2, you can actually electric this. If you're fast enough, right? It's a little bit weird on the timing, so I'm messing up. YouTube curse, bro. There we go, that's a punish, right? If you want to like make it easier, you can down forward 1-4. This also works, but it's -16. So if a Lydia player messes up and 1-2-2 does not work, that's launch punishable. Electricing it is a little bit off because the timing is weird for me. It needs a bit of practice in my opinion. I haven't practiced it yet, it's a new character. But you can even electric it. Just like, you know, I just did right now, it's a punish. If you're playing an easier character, like if you have a generic down forward 2, do that. Or even if you have a 16 frame launcher like a, I don't know, Whoring back 3, I think is 16, even that will work. So yeah, that's very, very important. Because as I said, she does not have a power crush and cat stance. And this is the stance that she goes to after 1-2-2. That's very, very important. Okay, so that's also one of the moves that forces the stance. But I don't think there's anything else that's like a high or a mid that does that, from what I remember anyway. There is a low, but I'm going to talk about lows later. But okay, let's talk about other stuff, which is like the most important part in my opinion. So right now, I'm going to talk about one of the best mids she has. So forward 2 is also a very, very good mid. But there's also another one which is also very strong to be one of her best. It's like a contender for one of her best mids. It's back 1. So back 1 is the 18 frame mid, which does chip damage, like 4 chip damage, not that much, but does chip damage. But the best thing about this move, which makes this so good, is that it's plus. It is a +2 mid, right? So it's a +2 mid, does chip damage, 18 frames, which is pretty fast, and the most important part about this is that it's a heat engager. So it's a heat engager that wall splats as well. Right? It's a wall splatting mid, +2, and the heat engager. And as I said, because it's so important for Lydia to get a heat engager in, that's why this move is so strong. So you'll see this a lot, like back 1 to 1 2, back 1 to 1 2 3, or back 1 to 1 4. You'll see this kind of stuff a lot because it's +2, and Lydia players will try to like check you with jabs. They might check you with down forward ones as well, so you have to be careful about stuff like that. So basically what I mean, when Lydia players do a back 1 into 1 2, this is the reason why they do it. It's a +2 move. If you want to like avoid this kind of stuff, you have to sidestep it. But the thing about jabs is that they track pretty damn well, especially like a 1-2, right? So you have to time your sidesteps, and especially it's easier on the right. So if you do go to the right, it's easier. But if you sidestep block, the 1-2 is still gonna catch you, unless you sidewalk to the right. So if you sidewalk, you can avoid it to punish it however you want, like an electric. I'm messing up my electrics today, I don't know why. But then there's the other problem, which is back 1 to down forward 1. So let's talk about down forward 1 now, right? So down forward 1 is her 13 frame mid check. It's like a generic down forward 1, but it's a little bit more minus than normal because it has 2 follow-ups. So down forward 1 2, which is a high follow-up, and down forward 1 3, which is a mid follow-up. It's something similar to Brian's down forward 2 follow-ups, right? So down forward 1 3 is minus 13. You can punish this. It has slight pushback, but not that much. You can easily punish this. And this is a counter launcher just like Brian's one, right? It's very, very similar. So let me just showcase that. If I try to mash here, I get counter launched. So you have to be very careful about this. And it can also be delayed slightly. Slight delay is possible. Not that much, but slight delay is possible. Like this is without delay, that's slight delay, right? So be careful about this, and whenever you block this, always punish it. But down forward 1 2 is the high follow-up, which basically, checks you even more. So if you do get hit by this, you just get damaged more as well. It's -4, which is less minus than just down forward 1. But the minus of this is that it's duckable, right? You can duck it and punish it. It's a high, it's duckable, it doesn't jail. So this is very, very important for that. But the best thing about down forward 1, in my opinion, is that 1, it has 2 follow-ups, which makes it that there's a mind game involved, right? So you can't always just disrespect this down forward 1, because there's a counter launcher just ready for you, right? If you disrespect with the buttons, you might get counter launched. So that's already scary. There's also a high that will check you as well. So yeah, that's strong. And now the second thing that makes this very strong is that it has very, very, very good tracking. Basically, it's homing to one side, which is sidestep right. It's very strong here, right? Sidestep right homing is very, very good, but sidestep left homing is not that good, right? So you have to sidestep it to the left and then punish it. If you do guess that something like a down forward 1 is coming, you have to sidestep it to the left if you want to fully optimize your punishment, and then launch, right? Or any kind of punishment, doesn't matter. But since I talked about back 1 previously, now comes the problem of back 1 to down forward 1. Since I said to sidestep jabs to the right, this down forward 1 just stops you from doing that, right? So if you sidestep right block, then you can avoid it sometimes, but it's still very, very iffy. Right? Very iffy. I avoided it like a couple of times like that, right? But this is not easy to do. I don't know how it's doable. I think it's more about the range than the down forward 1 by itself. But sidestep right into block, as I said, doesn't win against 1-2s. Like that'll get blocked. And if you sidestep right duck, you might get hit by down forward 1. So basically you have to be a little bit more careful about the back 1 mind games, right? So yeah, back 1's a very, very strong move, and the options after it is either gonna be jabs, maybe down forward 1. Stuff like that, basically. If they see you sidestepping, they might even do a homing move. So next, I'm actually gonna be talking about homing moves, because I think the homing moves are very important for Lydia, because as I said, it's very important to step her correctly. But she has a lot of homing moves, and they're very good. So let's talk about the worst homing move in my opinion, which is back 4. So this is not a bad homing move. don't get me wrong. This is not a bad one, but I think the other ones are just better. So this is a -3 homing move that looks like a Kazuya back 4 a little bit, right? So 16 frame homing move, that's a high. It is a +6 and -3, so it has decent frames. But the biggest thing about this is that on counter hit you get a free follow-up. So that's the biggest and strongest thing about this. 4-4-3 is guaranteed here, for example. Other stuff might be guaranteed as well, like the ground punch, but basically you get something guaranteed, so back 4 is not that good. The weakness of it, obviously, is that it's a high, right? And on hit, it doesn't really do much either. That's also another weakness. But now comes the second tracking move, which is another high, which is way better in my opinion. So this is 1 frame slower, just 1 frame, so this 16 is 17. And the input is a little bit more complicated, it's QCF4. But the thing about this rule is that it's bufferable. So it won't come out slower or anything if you do it correctly. So you can just buffer it. Unlike in electric, this is bufferable, and you can just do it. So what makes this so much better than back 4? One, because its on-hit property is so much better because it's +10 instead of +6. The +10 here means that you actually get a guaranteed 1-2 here. So 1-2 with the can't stance mix-up while doing 42 damage is very, very good. Because as I said, for Lydia it's very important to go into stances because that's where she is the strongest. And the weakness of this is the same as the last one, back 4, which is, it's a high. But back 4 also has a weakness of having bad range, while QCF4 has amazing range. So this is just a better move, in all regards. Because you're kind of forced to duck this, right? If you don't duck it, let's do the block, you're actually going to be minus as well. So unlike back 4, which is -3, this is +1. So if you block this and you see Lydia players spamming jabs after it, or doing something like a down jab, that's why they're doing it. It's +1. And if you do something, they will beat you. So you have to be very, very careful about this. This is a very, very strong move. Very, very good. But now let's talk about the third homing move, which is very, very important. No, and it's down for 3+4. So this is a mid-homing move, unlike the first two, which are high. But it is much slower in 22 frames. So that much slower, but it's slower, right? So 22, but it's a safe mid-homing move, right? -9, as you guys saw. The best properties about this is that it stops sidestep duckers. So if you're thinking about, oh, okay, all these highs, maybe I can just sidestep and duck it, which can be good because your sidestep might avoid some mids and avoid the homing highs. But then comes this move, which basically says no to you, right? Don't do that. And the reason you don't do that because it's a wall splat. That's the reason you don't do that. So it's not only a wall splat, it's also a knockdown, right? Not a knockdown. Ballerina spin, spinning thingy. So the spinning thingy is like +12. I didn't mean that. And its counter property basically doesn't exist, right? It doesn't have a counter property. So it's a normal move that is +12, which is very good because this into 4-4-2 is gonna be a very, very good thing to do, right? On hit. But the biggest thing about this, as I said, is that wall splats. This wall splatting property is very, very scared to deal with at the wall. Because you're basically gonna be at the wall. You might want to sidestep. And you might sidestep block this, but if you sidestep block, something like this might get blocked. And, basically a lot of mind games here with 4-4-2s as well. If you sidestep block, will be like way, way harder to sidestep. And, back ones will be harder to sidestep as well. Stuff like that. But yeah, I almost forgot to mention about back one when I was talking about this. That you don't want to block it, right? Obviously you don't want to block it. And you can sidestep it both directions, more or less. But it's easier to sidestep to the left than to the right. A little bit easier, in my opinion. But it still has like decent tracking. Oh no, actually I think I'm wrong. Yeah, I'm wrong. It's a better to sidestep to the right, not to the left. Back one's more stepable to the right. Forgot about it for a second. So yeah, sidestep right block in general is gonna be a good strat. But as I said, you have to be careful because how much plus frames you can accumulate by doing something like this, or even something like 4-4-2s, or something like back ones, like even more back ones. Like if you block a back one, do sidestep right block, they might do just another back one, like a sidestep back one, because you're respecting it because you're blocking after a sidestep, right? So you have to be careful. Be very, very careful about your movement. And the sidestepping is very important against this character, but it's also important to understand that she has very good homing moves. I already talked about 3 of them, right? But the best 2 are the scariest ones, like this and this. These are the scariest ones in my opinion. Okay. So this is all important to consider, but now let's talk about the lows. I don't think I should talk about any other mids, right? There are some good mids as well, like down forward 4, for example, and back 3. These are good, but they're not like worth mentioning too much. I'll mention down forward 4 a little bit. Down forward 4 is basically... Oh, I just forgot. I just remembered something. Okay, I have to mention this actually. So let's mention down forward 4 and the down forward 4 strings. I almost forgot about this. So down forward 4 is a mid check, 15 frame mid check, right? But this move basically can be used as an anti-side step left, which is very, very good. It has a track to the right, not right, track to the left, almost fully. But you can sidestep to the right. But as I said, sidestep right is covered by down forward 1. Down forward 1 covers sidestep right, and everything else like this covers sidestep left, for example. Down forward 2 also covers sidestep left. But forward 2 can also cover some kind of steps if the Lydia player, you know, tries to align, tries to track it. And there are all the homing moves, as I said, so you have to be very careful. But I feel like sidestep right might be the correct option against this character, because even if you get hit by down forward 1, it's fine, but if you get hit by down forward 2, that's not fine, for example. So yeah, that's important. But now let's talk about down forward 4. So down forward 4 is not only just this move, but it also has follow-ups. So down forward 4-4 is this high right here. So this is a high, but it's not easy to react to. This is not a reactable high, it's very fast. And the best thing about this is that on hit, it guarantees stuff, right? It's a knockdown, it will guarantee you some stuff, which is decent damage for Lydia if you get hit by it. The weakness of this is that it is steppable. So if you are stepping, let's say you're just stepping, right? It might whiff, especially to the left. Even to the right it can work if you time it correctly, but it's not that easy to do. If you sidestep, it's a little bit easier. I mean sidewalk. But yeah, that's the weakness of it. But the thing about this is that it's very hard to punish. This is not that easy to punish. If you do sidestep it, and you try to electrocute as a punishment, that wasn't a punish, for example, right? She recovers quite quickly. So if you want to punish her like almost 100% of the time, try to choose a quicker punishment option, like back 1-2, 1-1-2, down back 1-2, or anything, right? Quicker punishment option other than electric. Even down forward 1-4 will be quicker here. So yeah, be a little bit careful about that. But as I said, this move, one of the best features of this move is not only the hit property, but also the block property. So on block, this is +6 and forces crouch. So if you do block this, this is another plus range move that basically forces you to either duck or sidestep it, right? So she has a lot of these. A lot of these moves that basically force you to want to sidestep or duck. Like this one. This forces you to duck, more or less. Sidestep, duck, doesn't matter. While this forces you to be a little bit more patient, while also maybe will force you to press some counter buttons that are fast, right? There are a lot of these. Like forward 2 will also force you to sidestep. Down forward 2 will also force you to sidestep to the right. And down forward 1 will basically stop that. Let's say sidestep right, that will stop. And this also forces you to sidestep, because you don't want to get, you know, +6 at the wall, for example. Or even outside of the wall. While forcing crouch. -6, I mean, right? So this is a very, very strong tool that Lydia has, in my opinion. So that's one of the things down forward 4 has, but there is also down forward 4-3. Which is another high that does decent chip damage, 7 chip. But it's +8. So if you can react to this, it's good, right? It's a little bit slower. If you can react and duck it, that's good. But it's a +8 mid. So that means she can just check you with everything she has. Anything she has, she can check you with it. So something like this into this, that's a frame trap, will also stop any kind of sidestepping, right? So you have to be very, very careful about stuff like that. I think this is a very, very strong tool. These two. Even though they're risky and they kind of force ducks, they're still very, very strong tools. Because at the wall, she has a back 1, which basically tells you not to duck, right? Because if you duck, you're gonna get wall splatted, while also heat engaged. But even on block, it's +2, so the Lydia player has no reason not to use it. So these moves are very, very good and complementing each other very well. Very, very well, in my opinion. So be careful about that kind of stuff. Okay, well, let's talk about. So I won't be talking about everything, obviously. Like, for example, this string. I won't be talking about that much, or the political storm. I won't be talking about that much. Because this is something you have to lab. For example, political storm is -10 in this one. -10 in this. At least minus 10, right? It's minus 13. And the follow-up is minus 15. And the best way to deal with this, I'm just going to briefly mention this. I won't be mentioning other stuff like this though. The best way to deal with this is to always mash jab after you block this. Even if you block this, you could just punish it. But the only time you want to not jab is when you block the last hit. Then you have to react and try to launch it. I think that's the best way to deal with this. Because if they just stop here and you're not jabbing because you want to punish the minus 13 one, it's don't do it, basically. So always jab because this jails. You won't get countered. You won't be countered by the last one either. That also jails. So that's like one of the best ways to deal with the political storm on block. So yeah, beware of that. Yeah, down forward 4 also has strength and stuff, but as I said, I won't be mentioning that too much. Okay, now let's go to lows. So the thing about Lydia's lows is, especially against Kazuya, they're pretty damn risky, right? For example, down back 4 is one of the lows from the neutral that looks like a normal low, right? It's like a stature kick, but it's way slower. Way slower. It's also 0, but on counter it... Where the hell was the counter, bro? Oh, it doesn't have a counter. I thought there was a different low. It doesn't have a counter animation either. So this low is a little bit iffy, right? On the iffy side. I thought it had a counter animation. I forgot. But yeah, it's a 0 on hit. Right? A 0. It's also minus 13 on block, which means Kazuya can launch it, which is pretty damn good. Because the reward here is not that much for Lydia. Because I said it's 0. Doesn't have a counter animation. So no counter it here. No high crushing. And it's slow. It's 22. Some people might even try to react to this and just block it, right? It's a little bit iffy when it comes to down back 4. But this move cannot be stepped that easily. Lows in general cannot be stepped that easily, but you know, this move cannot be stepped that easily either. You can sidestep it to the right. Damn, that's way easier than I thought, to be honest. I think longer ranges, that's why I tested it. Longer range is a little bit iffier. Okay, I think I might be wrong with this one. This looks like a very bad low because sidestep right avoids it way too easily. I thought it would track sidestep right as well. I tested only sidestep left. I was like, okay, it should track to the right as well, but apparently it doesn't. So it's a little bit of iffy low. So I don't think you'll see this Lydia players use this that much because you know it's a little bit iffy, very iffy actually. Like down 2 is another low though. So let's talk about down 2. So down 2 is the low that you'll see Lydia players use a little bit more than normal in my opinion. Even though it's not that good either, like Lydia's lows aren't that good, right? That's why I say her poking is a little bit iffy. So down 2 doesn't do much damage. It does have a counter hit property, which I think is a very good counter hit property. But on the hit, it's not that good. The counter property is good, but it's minus 14 on block as well. But this is still a low that I think Lydia players will use. And the reason for it is because the counter hit property guarantees this, which is a free heat engager. So it's not that much damage, it's 29 damage. But it's a guaranteed heat engager, which as I said, Lydia kind of wants heat engagers. She wants heat. It's very important for her. I will talk about her heat a little bit later. Okay. So that's about down 2 more or less. Let me talk about the tracking of this move as well. Might as well. So if you sidestep it right, it will track you, and sidestep left will also get tracked. If you want to avoid this, I think sidewalk left is like the way to go. But you cannot sidestep avoid this. It's very hard to sidestep block and avoid it. Sidestep duck obviously will beat it. Damn, it didn't whiffed here. But yeah, it's a little bit more, it's way better actually when it comes to down back 4, when it comes to its tracking. And I was actually surprised that down back 4 was whiffing so much on sidestep right. Sidestep right block, right? Okay. So that's about down 2 more or less. It's definitely a very good low. But against Kaz or even someone like Jin that can launch it, or Raven, way riskier. Especially against Jin, right? Because Jin actually does a lot of damage on the wall standing launcher. Unlike Kaz, or even Raven does a lot of damage as well. While we deal like 60 damage. While Jin can do a lot, with a lot of wall carry. So yeah, be careful about that. So that's about down 2. And now let's talk about down back 3. So down back 3 is the scariest low that Lydia has in my opinion, which is the low that basically forces you to commit duck. It's a fast low, 16, right? 16 frame low. And this low very much reminds me of Fang's down back 3. The big difference between the two, I think, is that the one high crushes and this doesn't, right? This doesn't high crush. Because both of them have very good tracking, but this one is actually just homing. While you can sometimes step down back 3, even though it's hard, this is just homing. You cannot step it. And the range of it isn't that bad either. Fangs is better, obviously, but still. Now, why does this remind me of Fangs? Because the mind game is very, very similar, in my opinion. And the counter hit is also very, very similar. Because counter hit basically does very similar like Fang does, right? Just gives you straight out damage, knocks you down, but there are some frames, basically, minus frames. And there are some mind games as well. So about down back 3, this I think this one was the most important things to remember about Lydia. That down back 3 forces horse stance, this stance, right? It forces this stance. What does this mean? So this means that even though you are minus 7 here, Lydia does not have moves that are that fast to check you. So this is a check that's 16. Right? That's a 16 frame check. That's a 22 frame move. 28 frame move. 17 frame move. Right? So all these moves are on the slower side. All of them are on the slower side. So the plus 7 doesn't actually mean the plus 7 that we're used to. Normally plus 7 means I can do my fucking jab against you, for example, and you won't be able to do anything. But she cannot jab here. It's impossible for her to jab after down back 3. Her options are slow, and the fastest thing she can do is the 16 frame check. So what does this mean? This actually means that if she actually commits to any of the buttons, like any of them unless they're low, a power crush will beat her. Every time, a power crush will beat her unless she does this low. So this is a low option she has after the horse stance, right? It's 1+2. But unless she does this and you do a power crush, all the options that she does will lose to a power crush. Unless she blocks, right? If she does down back throwing to block, this might be a good strat, by the way. Lydia players might start doing down back throwing to block when they see people power crushing them. Or it might be just good in general, because, you know, down back throwing to block into another down back throwing maybe. And it's like a hell sweep at this point, right? Or a hatchet kick. So, I think this is going to be the strat in the future, but for now, it's very, very important to understand that every option that she has can be beaten by a power crush. You just beat her. The only one that beats you is the low. This. So if you do a power crush, and she does this low, I'm just gonna showcase it. You are gonna get launched. This is a normal hit launch, not normal hit, counter launcher. But the thing about this also that's very, very important is that the thing that's also very, very important is that that low, I'm going to be talking about this low later as well, when I cover the stats, is minus 18. So if you do force that out, it's very, very good. Very, very strong. But as I said, good Lydia players will understand to actually not do that low, but use down back 3 to block instead. So the scariest thing about this move, in my opinion, is the block section. When she starts blocking after down back 3. And I think Lydia players will slowly realize that the stance pressure isn't the best thing to do in those situations, especially after forward 4-2 and down back 3. And the best thing to do is to actually just hold back. Because not only are you already, you know, making your opponents respect you, because they most likely won't press that much, but the only things they might press is something like a power crush, which is punishable. And especially at the wall, if they do a power crush, you can punish it with 4-2-4. As I said, this punishment is very good. And you know, you get a pre-wall combo, which does decent damage. So, yeah, this is very, very strong. Just be careful about this. Be very, very careful. Down back 3 is a very, very strong low. As I said, basically forces you to duck. Now let's talk about the block property of this. So this on block might say minus 11 here, but I talked about that all stances require 8 frames to recover. What this means is that this is at least minus 19. So if you do block this, that's a punish. Pure punish. But to be fair, it's also minus 18 because the power crush exists there. This power crush is faster than that. Power crush actually starts at 7 frames. But as I said, while standing 2 is always a punish. Minus 18, but while standing 2, it is always a punish. The only exception here is in heat. I'm going to be talking about heat later. There's a lot to talk about this character, as you guys already understand, because I've been talking about it for so long. Okay. So that's about down back 3, more or less. I'm gonna be doing the stance options a bit later, but let me think about if I forgot any of the lows or mids that are important. So these are the parry options. Like, I won't cover the parry options too much, because the thing about these options, like for example this, not that, this and this, or even the manual parry, these are just the reads that the Lydia players do, and the important part to realize is that something like this needs to be stepped, right? Because if you do block it, it's -6. It's not punishable or anything. And it's strong when the parry happens. So if you want to punish it, you have to step it. The one thing I will teach you guys though is that this might be a very, very common setup. I haven't seen Lydia players do it too much, but sometimes they do it. It was very, very common at Tekken 7. Was that when they do the down back 3 and it counter hits, they might do a down back 3 plus 4 parry. So something like this basically. Like a counter hit. Damn it. Wait. There we go. This right here. This might be very, very common. And the reason this will be common is because if you do try the get up kick here, like get up low, you are gonna get parried. This used to be very common in Tekken 7 as well. And the weakness of this is mid get up kicks. So if you do a mid get up kick here, they will, you know, get hit. But the mid get up kick is still risky because they might sidestep it. They might just, you know, sidestep it, and you might get punished for it. Or backdash it, you might get punished for it. The other thing you can also do is a delayed get up 3. This was very, very strong at Tekken 7 because the get up 3 is used to counter launch. But you have to delay it. If you don't delay it, you are gonna get parried. So basically, delay get up 3 and it will work. And the reason you do this is because you kind of don't want to... You don't want to block this. So if you get up normal, that's how you hold back. That's a -3 mid that you're blocking. Right? It's a -3 mid. So what that means is the Lydia player, if they use a blow there, it's basically going to be a mix-up to it. And the other thing, which is also very important here, is that this hits grounded. Let's say I just stay on the ground. I won't press anything. This will hit grounded. This will just hit you. So this forces you not to just stay on the ground, not to just stand up either. It's basically annoying. So get up mid kick. Say, don't do it ever again. I'm just going to hit you and try something else. Basically, play the mind game. This is very important in my opinion, because this is very annoying to deal with. Even on block, on hit, everything. It's just annoying to deal with. So, yeah, get up mid kick is like the easiest option you can choose. But as I said, Lydia players will have options to deal with that as well. You have to be careful. Okay, so that's one of the setups I just covered, but she will most likely have a lot more setups when it comes to parries, so be careful. They will like discover more and more. It's still very, very early. So, yeah. But I think that's it, right? For a neutral mind game anyway. The most common ones. Let me see if I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, I'm forgetting sidestep 2. Okay, so this is gonna be the last thing I'm gonna talk about in the neutral anyway. And after this I'm gonna go into stances. So sidestep 2 is also an important move, I feel like. Because this is the elbow. 18 frame elbow. That's +5 on hit, right? Horse's crouch. And the guarantees something like 4-4-3 on counter. And the biggest thing about this move, in my opinion, which makes it strong, is that it's 0. So it forces crouch on you, but it's also 0 on block. What this means is that they can control what your moves are gonna be and just avoid it. So a sidestep right after this is gonna be common for the players because usually they'll think, oh, he's gonna wall stand forward. Or something similar, right? So that's why they're gonna do this in the sidestep right, or this into jabs, or something like this into down forward 1 as well. Basically, it's 0, so you should expect buttons. If not buttons, they're gonna sidestep right to just, you know, bait some of your wall stand moves. It's very, very common, and it's gonna be very common. So that's important to realize. And the thing about this move also is that it's hard to sidestep because it is a sidestep move. And sidestep moves aren't that easy to sidestep because the sidestep itself realigns. Dude, I said the word with sidestep so much, damn. But yeah, very, very important. Okay, now let's go into stances, actually. First, let's cover horse stance, which is this stance right here, after 4-4-2. So this stance, as I said, is the stance that has a power crush option, which you have to be kind of afraid of because if you do mash, it's going to beat you. So this into 1 is the power crush option that goes to her third stance. So this is the wolf stance, basically. I think it's called the savage wolf, wolf stance. And this is the stance that's the scariest of them all. You basically don't want Lydia to be in your face and in this stance. You have to do anything in your power to not let this happen. Sometimes it will happen, obviously, right? It's Tekken. But you have to try to not let it happen. And the reason behind that is because this is basically a hell sweep stance. That's why I call it, it's a hell sweep stance. Because she has a hell sweep after this. This is a hell sweep. That's guaranteed. And it's a very fast hell sweep. 20 frame hell sweep. You can't react to this. So, yeah, very important. If you do block it, it's like a hell sweep, you can launch it. But it's a hell sweep stance with good mids. Right? So, as I said, you don't want to be in the situation because you don't want to get hell sweeps and get knocked down because of it. But, what can you do against it? So, the thing about the horse stance is the most common transition is going to be forward forward 2. The forward forward 2 horse stance is going to be very, very common. And that's going to be the most common transition. And as I said, forward forward 2 is a +5 move that forces this stance. But the moves in this stance are very, very slow. Not very slow, but slower than the usual. They don't have a... Lydia doesn't have a 13 frame move here, for example, right? The fastest move she has is the 16, which is the 2. This can be a very common option, by the way. I'm going to be talking about this a little bit when I cover this. But since the fastest move is a 2, which is 16, you can actually jab interrupt everything she does. Literally everything she does, you can jab interrupt, and the only exception here is the power crush, because it's the power crush. So if I try to do a forward forward 2 into 2, that's a +6 into 16. This will trade with 11 framers like that, but 10 framers like a 1-1 or just normal 1 jab will beat it. So that's why it's so important to actually challenge her in forward forward 2 frames. You have to jab, you have to down jab sometimes. Down jab is also very good. But basically both of them have options to get beaten by. A jab will get beaten by this power crush, because this will happen. You jab, you'll get hit, +16, and then you're gonna guess in the hell sweep stance. Right? After this, you're gonna be -16, she's gonna be in hell sweep stance, and then you have to guess for your life. Especially at the wall, she has a wall splitting mid that's also plus, so yeah, good luck with that. You don't want that to happen. So yeah, be careful about the jabs too much. It's good, but it's not the best. And if you want to deal with this power crush in one of the best ways possible, is to do a down jab. Because this is how you do it. Power crush is the high, down jab, the high will whiz, and then you can just launch her for free. Because on whiff she doesn't transition. This is one of the best ways to deal with this, because the down jab also beats something like a 2 option. So this gets beaten. This also gets beaten. This is a slow mid. And this, which is a low option, also gets beaten by a down jab. By the way, this also beats the jab option. So if you jab and she does the slow, this also beats you. But it won't counter launch you, so it's gonna be fine. The problem is this one. Right, this is the big problem about jabbing. But there's also a problem about down jabbing. Because she has an option for down jabbers as well, which is the 3 option. So this is a jumping move, which will avoid the down jab and will hit you. And the thing about this is that this also guarantees a free forward 1+2. 47 damage, that's quite a chunk of damage, right? And the thing about this move also, as you guys see, is that it's a tracking move. Mid, that's -4, and on hit it guarantees like 47 damage. So it's very, very good. It also has quite a bit of pushback as well. Excuse me. So the pushback on it is pretty good. So you have to be careful about this. Very, very careful. I think the -4 is the one that's the scariest. But if you do jab, you're actually going to float her. This is going to get floated, so let me just demonstrate it. So I think your options... There you go, normal float, right? Then you can do a whatever combo you want. Float combo, basically. So your options here are going to be basically... If the Lydia player just decides to always go for the stance options, which I think at first Lydia players will do this a lot, instead of just doing forward forward 2 into block. Maybe some Lydia players that are, you know, good and understand how strong this is will do it. But a lot of Lydia players will go into stance and force pressure. If you do a jab or down jab, especially if you do down jabs, I think it's going to annoy them a lot. Because it's going to force them to do 3s. These options. But then if you do jabs, you're going to float them. Basically, you're going to annoy them with jab and down jab options. If you do a power crush yourself, that's also very strong. So power crush actually beats every option here except for the low. So this low will counter launch you, but if you do a power crush, it will beat anything else. Let me just demonstrate that, right? So even if you... Even the Lydia player does the 3, you will beat it. even if she does her own power crush, let's say she does this 2, not 2, the 1. We're gonna absorb the power crush and beat her. So this is very, very good, very strong. But as I said, the biggest thing about the stats is that Lydia player can block after this if they just go hold back. So that's why I don't like the power crush option that much, because they can just hold back, but block the power crush and then punish you. And as I said, Lydia has good punishment. 4-4 is crazy good. Crazy good punish. Also 2-2 is a good punish as well. So yeah. Oh, and I almost forgot, 2-2 is also another move that transitions into stance, and this is -12. So that's important to realize. Okay. And that's about horse stance more or less, with the most common transition being 4-4-2. Now let's talk about cat stance. This stance right here. And the most common transition for cat stance, I forgot, one of the other transitions for horse stance is also down back 3. So 4-4-2 and down back 3 is basically the transitions you're gonna see. So now let's talk about cat stance. The cat stance transition is usually gonna be down 4-2. Either down 4-2 or 1-2-2 on hit. These two are gonna be the most common. So think about 1-2 on hit. So if this hits you as a 10 frame punish, because this is Lydia's 10 frame punisher, you're gonna be -8, and you're gonna be getting mixed by cat stance, right? So you have to be very careful in this situation. But as I said, the thing about cat stance is that it doesn't have any power crushes. So if something like a down 4-2 gets blocked, she doesn't have a power crush option to stop you from retaliating. But what she does have is basically just blocking, and she can just block. She can also just duck. The down 4-2 into duck is also a thing that they can do. But it's also important to retaliate, because you don't want them to freely mix you up after the down 4-2, which is just 0 on block, right? You don't want them to do that. But yeah, it's not that scary because, as I said, no power crush. But what she does have is a high crush. I already mentioned this. So the thing about cat stance is that her options in cat stance is this mid, which is a safe mid. Another mid, which is an unsafe mid. It says -3 there, so this is important. Cat stance 1+2 is a transition stance. Not transition stance, a transition move. They're transitioning into the hell sweep stance, right? The wolf stance, whatever it's called. So the thing about this is that it's very important to punish this. It says -3, but as I said, every stance requires 8 frames at least. Not at least, exactly 8 frames. To start blocking, which means this is -11. So a 12 frame punish will not work. Let me just demonstrate that. So if I do something like 1+2, which is my 12 frame punisher, it won't work. But if I do something like a back 1-2, that will work, because it's -11 exactly. So even something like a jab, like 1-1-2, it's gonna be a punish. That's just pure punishment. And I don't think she has a power crush in this stance. I'm pretty sure she doesn't. So yeah, 1-1-2 or back 1-2 as Kazuya is going to be your punishment for cat stance 1+2. So you should not let her go into this stance and mix you up. If this hits you though, you're going to get mixed up. It's +27 to a hell sweep stance, you're just going to get mixed up. So be careful about that. Important to punish this. It's also very important to punish this. I almost forgot to mention this, right? Horse stance 2 and 4. Actually, I don't think I'm done with horse stance. So let's go back to her stance a little bit. I'm gonna talk about cat stance a little bit later. So the low I already talked about is basically something that you need to launch punish every time you block it. And on hit, basically, it's -1, but it forces crouch. So you do have to be careful about this. Be very, very careful about this. But it's not that scary. Like, it's really not that scary because it's launch punishable. But now let's talk about the 2. So this is the scariest option in my opinion, and the strongest option that Lydia has in horse stance. Horse stance 2. So this is a heat engager that transitions into heat, and it manually goes into this heaven and earth stance, and does not take that much heat energy. Basically takes only half, which is way less than what normally takes, trust me. So this is very, very strong option for Lydia, because she wants to hit this. Basically she wants to hit this almost every time in the match, because it's that strong. But the minus of this is that, and make him block it, it's -10. So it's very important, very, very important to always punish this. This is such a strong move that you have to always punish it with a jab. Especially with guys who have a good 10 frame punisher with 1-1-2, right? Or if you're playing anyone else like Jin, 2-4 is also strong. Any 10 frame punish, basically you have to punish it. You have to do it, it's very strong. The other weakness this has is that it's very weak to sidestep right. It has tracking to left. You can't step to the left. but it has weakness to the right. So for example, after forward forward 2, if she does this too, not only can you just, you know, block and punish it, 1-1-2 punish for it, you can also sidestep right and electric it. That's also very possible. And sidestep right in general after forward forward 2 I think is a very, very good option. But sidestep right duck is the option that you want to go for in my opinion. Because there's a high power crush that you want to duck, and there's also a low that you want to duck. So if you do something like this, basically, a sidestep right duck is a very, very good option. So I would consider that. But the thing about that, which is scary, is that if you do something like that, they'll just transition into a horse stance and start mixing you up with hell sweeps. So that's gonna be scary, because you're doing a sidestep right duck, and then you just can't react to whatever is happening on the screen, because it's fast. This is fast. You won't be able to punish it, stuff like that. Or if they do just forward forward 2 into blocks and you're just sidestep right ducking every time, good luck with dealing with that, right? So, yeah, be careful about your options, basically. So that's about the 2. Now let's talk about the 4. So the 4 is basically the option Lydia has to also transition into the horse stance, not horse, wolf stance, this one. Which, as I said, this is the hell sweep stance. And this option is basically for people who are very patient. If you are very patient against the stance and don't do anything, not even sidestep, just hold back, a Lydia player will just press forward, not only force you to like maybe duck it, even though it's very slow, right? But it's +8. +8 into this stance, into this double mid, that's a frame trap. So be very, very careful about this. Like, normally you don't want to block this, basically. Not that. This. You just don't want to block this. That's why I always say to retaliate with jabs or down jabs. You can also sidestep right duck. This will get avoided as well. So those 3 options is something you can do. Sidestep right or sidestep right duck, or jab or down jab. Those are very, very good options in my opinion after forward forward 2. But as I said, the very good Lydia players are just going to do forward forward 2 into nothing and then annoy you, because you're doing stuff like jab, down jabs, and sidestep rights, and none of them will annoy the Lydia player. Because, you know, they're not doing anything. But this will annoy you because they're doing forward forward 2s, and if one of them counter hits you or hits you, then you're going to be in a real mix-up. So it's annoying for you, not for them. Okay. So that's about forward forward 2 and horse stance, more or less. Let me see if I forgot something. Yeah, talk about this as well. And this. Okay. Oh, also, almost forgot. So this, if you do block this, let's say you block this, right? This power crush right here. She does force transition into the wolf stance. But this also has the same mind game as every other stance transitions, like forward forward 2 does, for example. You can mash here, for example, if you mash down forward 2 and she mashes as well, you will counter hit her almost every time. But it will trade with this. But if you mash a 13 frame move, you'll beat her every time. Basically, a 13 frame move mash as a check is going to be the best option that you do. If you have a good down forward 1, that's what you do, but for Gaz we don't. So you have to do like a down forward 4. That's it, down forward 4. That's basically what we can do. You can also check with 2-2. I think 2-2 is a very, very good check in this situation because you can't really high crush that well. Because, you know, this move, even though it's a low, it doesn't really high crush. Unless this high crush. I'm not sure if this high crushes. But yeah, basically your best option is the 13 frame mid check or even the 12 frame mid check. That's very good. But as I said, remember that she can block here. She can do this and then start blocking immediately. She does need to come to an option. Alright, so that is important. Now let's go to cat stance. So cat stance, I already talked about this. So this is one of the options she has, which is weak to sidestep. So for example, if she does something like a 1-2 punish into the 1, which can be very common, right? You can actually sidestep this to the left, even on hit. But you cannot sidestep it to the right that easily. I think you can. Okay, yeah, you can way easier than I thought. Damn, pretty weak to the right. Not the right, to the left and to the right. Damn, my bad, I was wrong. I remembered it had track to the right, but I think you remember the Tekken 7 version, maybe, right? But yeah, you can sidestep this very easily, even on hit. But the options you have to be very careful of, very, very careful of after 1-2, is the 2 option, which, to be honest, is not that big of a problem, the 2-3. Which basically checks you. This checks any kind of retaliation. The only difference here is that it's punishable. So this is going to be very important to punish. I think this is going to be one of the most important ones to punish. So while you can't sidestep this will just hit you. You can't sidestep it. It's also not natural. So this is very important to punish. Every time you have to punish it by 10, both of the hits, by the way, the punch and the kick is -10. But the problem here is that the last hit exists. So there's also a 2-1, a 2-3-1, 2-3-1. This. So if you try to punish this by 10, the last is gonna hit you, and especially at the wall, it will wall splat you as well. And it's also delayable, so you have to be careful about this. While this checks you, it's very good. It's also natural and counter hit. So what you're gonna see here, which is gonna be very strong in my opinion, is that Lydia players will basically check you with this and counter it, confirm the 1. If you do a mash, you're gonna get wall splat into 49 damage. So yeah, mashing is scary. So what I'm talking about is basically this: 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 1. Let's say this is happening at the wall, right? You're gonna get hit by 1 to 2. You're gonna try to power crush here. Damn, power crush works against that? My bad. I thought power crush didn't work. Maybe you try to jab here, right? Any other thing. How does a power crush work there? That's +8 into 14. A power crush should not work there. I'm pretty sure it should. Did I mess up? Yeah, I didn't mess up. I did mess up. It doesn't work. My bad, boys. Because frame-wise, it shouldn't work. Okay, let me just demonstrate that again. There we go. You can't even power crush here, basically. Can't do anything. Can't even rage art. Basically can't do anything. So if she checks you with 2-3 and confirms it with a 1, that's a 49 damage roll splat, and you're basically dead, right? Yeah, GG well played. At the wall, GG well played. So this is very important to punish with 1-1-2, the first 2 hits. Because good Lydia players will do 2-3 and not finish the 3rd hit unless they see a counter hit. That's why we punish it, 1-1-2. And the thing about the last hit, this one, is that it's also -10. So even if they mess up and they just commit to it, even unless they confirm it, it's still -10. It really doesn't matter. Which, in my opinion, it's a little bit dumb. I think this is very strong. But it is what it is right now. This should be more minus. In my opinion, it should be at least -13. Like at least 13 or 14. Because of how strong it is as a counter hit move. But also another weakness this has is that you can down jab it, right? You can just high crush it. You can't high crush it with like moves as well. You can also high crush with moves. Something like this. But reads like this are risky. Like very risky. Obviously they're risky. But other than that, this beats everything. This will attract sidesteps, but if you sidestep, it's not natural. The thing about this is that it beats button mashers. Like if they mash power crush, it will beat them. Rage art, it will beat them. Anything, it will beat them. It's a lot of damage if they confirm it as well. Now let's talk about the other option for mashers, which is the 3. So 1, 2, 2, 3. There's a cat stance 3. It's gonna be their option against mashers. So if I try to mash power crush, I will get beaten. But it's also an option against steppers. You cannot step this. So this is like an all-around good option for Lydia players. And I think this will be used usually outside of the wall. And the reason you will see this outside of the wall is because the 2-1 option, 2-3 option, is very strong at the wall. But this is not as strong. Of course, this is very good as well. This also wall splats. But usually if they want to check you, the 2-1 is punishable, so they won't use it much. But they will use this high instead. So this into this on block is -4. So only -4. So unless you duck and punish it, you can't do anything about this. This is a move that forces you to duck. So this forces this reaction. Of course you can launch it if you duck it, obviously, right? But it basically forces a pure duck because there's nothing else that you can do against it other than, you know, block it. You can't sidestep it. You can't power crush it. You can't do anything against it, basically. Let me try to down jab it. Yeah, down jab works against it as well. Or maybe a high crush move. Yeah, high crush move doesn't work. So a manual high crush move does not work. You can only down jab it. Like I tried down back 3 and down 1+2. You don't have the frames basically. So yeah, be very, very careful about this. You can like test out your own high crush moves, like as this high crush moves, for example, don't work. So yeah, this is the move that you have to be aware of the most, in my opinion, because this will be used a lot. It's either that or nothing. And now let's talk about the low option. So the thing about the low option in cat stance is that it's very strong because it transitions into the hell sweep stance. So this low option, the 4, automatically transitions into the wolf stance, the hell sweep stance basically, no matter what happens. So 1, 2, 2 into 4 is going to be a very, very good option. Because let's discuss this. Because this tracks, right? It stops you from stepping either side, it will track you. You can't backdash this or anything. So this is also one of those moves that force you to either, you know, maybe down jab, or low crush, or duck. Right? That was the wrong punch, by the way. But it's very important to realize how this move works. Because on blocking transitions into stance and it says -6. And when this stuff happens, you have to remember when I said at the start of the vid that every stance needs 8 frames to recover. -6 actually means -14 here. What that means is that Jin can launch it, Raven can launch it, you know, Jun can launch it, and you know, Kazuya can launch it as well with Twin Pistols. 1, 2. That's a pure punish. He cannot do anything against this. And if you try to do a 15 frame punish here, they can block it. If they hold back, they'll block it. So very, very important to realize that. Very, very important. But this is also a very strong option, as I said, because it forces a down jab or a low crush option or a duck. Because you cannot do a mid check here. So I'll just demonstrate that. Let me do it like a down forward 4. Won't work. Does not work. And also launches you. I think that's a counter launcher, right? Yep. The whatever combo. It's counter launcher. So you have to be very careful about checking. So this is also one of the moves that will beat your power crush attempts. So 1, 2, 2 cat stance is something that you don't want to challenge that much, in my opinion. You just don't want to challenge it. Because if you do challenge it, the risk is way too high. At the wall, something like 2 through 1 is going to hit you fully and you're going to get the wall splatted. High risk, right? Amazingly high risk. The 3 is also going to hit you. And the 4 is also going to hit you. The only challenge that I see that might be okay is maybe a down jab. Right? A down jab might be okay. If you do a down jab after 1, 2, 2, this will hit you, which is still scary, right? But this, if you force this out, it's very, very risky for the Lydia player to do because, as I said, it's very steppable. The other thing that she can also do is a 1+2, this move, which is also another forced transition move. So these 2 options, the 1 and the 1+2, is what's going to beat your down jabs. So let's talk about the 1+2. So 1+2, unlike the 1, cannot be snapped that easily. This actually tracks. So this is also a mid. That's an anti-sidestep, so you can't sidestep this. But unlike the 1, it's punishable. I already talked about this, right? This is -11. Back 1, 2, that's a punish. And it's very, very important to punish this. But the cat stance mix-up after 1 to 2 is basically very, very good. It's a good mix-up for Lydia. Because she has 2 options for sidesteps. Actually, 4 options that all of them beat sidesteps. Well, 3. 2, 3 doesn't really beat sidesteps. 2, 3 is for mashers. So 3 beat sidesteps, which is the high hit engager. 4 beat sidesteps, which is the low. And 1+2 also beat sidesteps, which is the mid. So something like sidestep duck is not an option. You're just going to get mixed anyway. And duck is also not an option because you're going to get mixed by the mid. So you have to guess, basically. But the best thing to do here is force the 4. You have to force these 2 moves, basically. You have to force either the 1, which is the risky option, or the 4. But then you have to guess and duck it, right? But it's -14. It's going to be worth it, especially if you play Kaz or Jin or anyone that can launch it. So, yeah. That's about that, 1 to 2. And that's about cat stance in general, I think, right? I think that's about it, more or less. But yeah, if this hits you, by the way, if this hits you, and if this hits you, you're basically going to be stuck in a hell sweep stance mix-up. Especially this side, right? This is also very scary. +8, 15 frame mid mix-up. You can power crush this, but if you don't react fast enough, good luck. But then it's still a mix-up with a hell sweep. So yeah, be very, very careful about this. And the thing about this, which is also very important to realize, is that this is done on purpose, by the way, is that this you cannot what's it called, rage art this. You can power crush, but you can't rage art it because rage arts come out 1 frame slower than power crushes do. So yeah, this is done on purpose. Obviously, it's done on purpose. So yeah, rage art's not really an option select or anything. It wouldn't be anyway because she can just block in this stance, but not even in that case when they mash the 2 here, which is a mid mix up, it's still not an option select or anything like that. Okay. I think that's it about cat stance, more or less. So now let's talk about the wolf stance, which is the hell sweep stance. So the hell sweep stance, the most common transitions is gonna be those transitions, right? Which I already talked about. I think I already talked about transitions a lot, which is the cat 4, I talked about this. Cat 1+2, talked about this as well. There's also this, which is the horse 4. And I think that's it. This is a different stance. Oh, and horse 1. Yeah, these 2. So these are the transitions to the wolf stance. And the wolf stance, as I said, is the hell sweep stance. There's a hell sweep here. So if you do find yourself against the stance and you just can't do anything because you're very minus, you have to guess. This is a guessing stance. Basically, as I said, it's a hell sweep stance. So this hell sweep, let's talk about this. It's a 20 frame hell sweep that if you duck is launch punishable. It's -16, and Kazuya can wall stank 2 as well, right? So that's very good. It's -16, it's not -15 for Kazuya players specifically. And just realize that if you do duck it, this jails. Even if you start mashing wall stank 2 here early, it just jails. And they don't have an option to go for the second hit or not. That second hit is always guaranteed, always comes out. So yeah, that is very, very important. If you do duck it, always punish it. But you also have to remember that most of the time you cannot sidestep this. Because when she's going to be in horse stance, you're going to be in heavy minus. Most of the time you're going to be in heavy minus. So it's going to be hard to sidestep something like this. So hell sweep stance, most of the time won't be steppable. So this is the mid mix up for the hell sweep, basically. Which does a decent amount of damage, like 24. But the best thing about this is that it does 4 chip damage, which is like okay, right? But it's +2. So it's a plus frame mid that mixed up with hell sweeps. It's very, very good. Very strong. And at the wall, it's going to be used a lot. And this is also one of the situations that it's going to be hard to sidestep if you're in heavy minus. Which in most cases is going to be the case. Either you're going to be in heavy minus or you're going to respect her so much that she's going to manual transition into wolf stance. An example of the last thing I just said is 4-4-2 into this transition. If you let her do it, of course she's gonna do it, and sidestepping this is really not gonna be an option because you're playing patient anyway. So yeah, gotta be careful about that. The other option she also has is a 3, which is a 3-1 here. But this is a safe mid option, which is only -6, but it's not natural. The thing about this move is that it's natural on counter hit. That's the best thing about this. But other than that, there's also this mid, which is also very good. Also wolf splat, it's very, very fast. But these are only the 4 options that she has on the wolf stance, basically. But as I said, it's a hell sweep stance. Basically, I have to guess either a hell sweep or not a hell sweep, right? Hell sweep or mid. Very, very simply, that's what you do. Okay, that's about the wolf stance. And I already talked about the transitions for it as well. But now let's talk about her heat stuff. So the heat stuff is the most important stuff, in my opinion. Because her heat is very strong. And every Lydia player should like go into heat as fast as they can, because it's just that good. So, why is heat stance that good? Or not heat stance, heat that good? So one, let's talk about the heat smash before we do anything else. So her heat smash is a mid that automatically transitions into the 4th stance, which is called the heaven and earth stance. So every time she does the stance, she gets a stack. As you guys see, the icon next to Lydia is glowing. It says 1. So there are 3 stacks in general, but every time she goes into that stance, which is this stance right here, she gets a stack. Right? So now she has 3 stacks. That's how she gets stacks. And what stacks do, to put it like very simply, it's not that complicated. Stacks make it so her heat consumption is less when it comes to this transition. This transition doesn't consume as much heat anymore if she has like higher stacks. Right? Less and less heat consumed. The other thing this also does is that it increases the damage on certain moves. One of the examples is something like the downwards punch, something like this. But basically, some moves get increased damage. Even this gets increased damage. They counter it. So be careful about that stance, but you can't really do anything about it. I think Lydia players are going to have that stack no matter what. It's not that they're hard to actually accumulate. Because as I said, the heat smash on block actually goes into the stance and accumulates the stack. It just accumulates one for free on block. But the thing about the heat smash that's very, very important, realize that it's very steppable. I've just demonstrated that. This is very steppable. And not only is it very steppable, it's also very easily punishable. She does run away, but she takes so long with her moves that you can very easily just run up and punish her. It's not that hard. Unlike some other moves that, you know, just run away very fast and recover very fast, she actually can be punished. And it's very linear to both sides. It's more linear to the left than to the right, by the way. It might have slide tracking to the right, but it won't have that slide tracking to the left. So if you do want to sidestep it, left is the way to go. Okay, that's about Heat Smash. But now let's talk about that stance I just showed you, right? Which is the Heaven and Earth stance, this. So the more stacks she has, she will use this more as time goes by. And I almost forgot to mention this, by the way. These stacks remain after the round as well. So for the whole game, if she has, for example, 2 stacks and she loses the round, in the next round, she's still gonna have 2 stacks. That's what makes this very strong. It makes it very, very good. Basically a late game character, right? Well, that's what it's called, late game character. If you played like any other games like MOBAs, it's a late game character. So, yeah, that's about Lydia's stacks. But now let's talk about the stats. So this stats, actually the main things you have to worry about is either this mid. They're basically 2 mids, right? It's basically a mix-up. It's kind of like the Hell Sweep stance. So she has a Hell Sweep in the form of this unblockable high. So it does 35 damage. That's an unblockable high that you can duck. But it's unreactable. And it's unsteppable. You can't step this. And it does 16 damage. Not 16 damage. It comes out in 16 frames. So you kind of have to duck it. If you guess it, you duck it. But then comes the other mix-ups, which are the mids. She has 2 options for the mids. So one is this. This is a +6 mid. That's very strong. This is the strongest move she has out of the stats, in my opinion. There's a lot of chip damage. How much does chip damage? What's that? 12 chip damage. And it's +6. It's very strong. And on the hit, it's a wall splat. Not only is the wall splat does decent damage, and it's a wall splat from very far away. Like this also powers up with stacks, if I remember correctly. So you have to be very careful about this. So this move basically tells you to don't duck me, right? While this move tells you yes, duck me. It's a pure mix-up. It's a pure mix-up. You can't do anything about this. And the third mid option, which I already mentioned as well, is the 1. So this 1 is a slower mid option than the 2, but it's still a pure mix-up, right? 16, 18, 13, they're close enough in frames to be a pure mix-up more or less. Not to mention all of them can be very delayed. All of them are delayable. So, yeah, you have to be very careful. And this mid mix-up actually is a launcher. So, if you get hit by this, yeah, you're gonna get launched into, you know, whatever combo. That doesn't matter. It's gonna deal a lot of damage. But the minus of this one, this mid, I've just demonstrated. Whoops. Is that it's punishable. So if you block this mid, the 1, you have to punish it. It's -11, so guys, you can get back 1-2. You can also 1-1-2. Doesn't matter. You punish this. The other mid is plus, but this is punishable. But yeah, at the wall you won't see this much. I'm gonna be honest. Like if a Lydia player does this correctly, you won't see this move at the wall almost at all. If they do it, they're doing something wrong. The only time this move is usually going to be used is at the end of combos because it spikes and it does a lot of damage. That's the main usage of this move in my opinion, not for a mid mix-up. But they can also use it for mid mix-up if they want to, right? If they really do want to. I've been talking too much. So yeah, this mix-up is very, very strong for Lydia, and that's why I think her heat is very strong. Because the heat is going to get stronger and stronger as her stacks progress. And if she manages to get 3 stacks, for example, in the first round, which is possible, because I think it's possible because of a bug. But she can get 2 stacks at least in the first round. Right? It's very, very possible. The way she can do it is she does horse stance 2. If this hits you, this, right? And then afterwards she can just do a heat smash, and if you block it, she also gets a stack. It's very easy to get 2 stacks. If the only time she gets 2 stacks is if she gets this counter, not counter, on hit. So that's why this is one of the strongest things that Lydia has, in my opinion. It's very, very good. And she becomes super strong with like higher stacks. 2-3 stacks, she's very, very cracked. Okay. So that's about that. That's about the Heaven and Earth stance. And now let's talk about the third thing about the heat that she has, is that this stance is also a parry. This stance is actually a parry as well. So, for example, I'm just gonna showcase this because this is important. If she does a hop kick and transitions into the stance, I had to record it. I was not recording. Hop kick into transition. She actually can parry your punishment options. So this is unpunishable now. Do it, bro. There we go. Right? You can't even jab it. Unpunishable. Nothing works. Oh, and the thing about this also, which is also very important, is that this parries everything. It's a strong parry. It says in the move list. It parries knees, aerial moves, anything. So let me do a knee, right? Let me just showcase it. Nope. Aerial move? Nope. Delayed hop kick. Nope. So the way you beat this, by the way, is you have to either do a low or a grab. These are your 2 options. So if you think that they're gonna go for the parry, you grab them. This is guaranteed. Or you can also do a low, like maybe a hell sweep, right? You can also down back forward. You won't get a counter hit, which sucks, but everything else gets parried. So these are your 2 options: lows or what's it called? Throws. I almost forgot. Oh, and also, if you play a weapon character and you think your weapons are gonna work, they're not gonna work. This parries Leroy's cane, by the way. That's one of the funniest interactions I've ever seen. Leroy's cane gets parried. I'm not joking. Test it out yourself later. Cane gets parried, so you can't even cane. Yoshimitsu's sword gets parried. You can't even use the sword. It's a strong parry. It parries everything, basically. The only thing it doesn't parry are projectiles, like bullets, Nina bullets, or Victor bullets, you know, projectiles, or laser. It won't parry this laser either. Thankfully. So, if something like this happens in that laser, it won't get parried. So, yeah, be careful about this. So, this is one of the setups, which is the hop kick. And the other setup is the cat stance 4. So, cat stance 4 usually is punishable, right? I already showcased this. This is minus 14 normally. Let me record this. But if you try to punish this, I messed up. Wait. Doesn't work. No punishment is gonna work here. Right? Nothing. You can do a low, obviously, as I said, that's how we beat it. Or you can do a throw. So it's still the same way. You beat this in the same way. So it's very, very important to realize this. This is kind of similar to how Reina's heat works. But the thing about Reina's heat is that you can use aerial moves against it. And you can also use knees and stuff against it, right? So, yeah. It is kind of different. And also Reina's mix-ups aren't like that scary. The most she does is like while staying 4-4 and baits you. That's like the most she does. While Lydia can do a lot of stuff, like hop kick basically can become safe, which is crazy to think about, right? So, yeah, be very, very careful about that. Okay, what else to mention? I feel like I might be forgetting something, but I usually am in speed labs. I can't remember everything. I think the one thing I kind of didn't mention is 4-4-2 on counter guarantees the horse stance 2. Did I mention that? I might have mentioned that, but it's not, like, on the defender side, it's not that important. You just have to remember to, you know, not press too much. It's very, very scary to press against Lydia because 4-4-2 counter is so strong. It's very, very strong. I think the character is good. So let's end it here, but before I end it, let me just say my thoughts, like my opinion about the character. So Lydia right now doesn't seem broken or anything like that, but she seems pretty damn good, in my opinion. She's at least good. And the thing about this character is that she's gonna become better and better when people find out a lot of stuff about her. Right now, this is like my opinion, how I see her, but I think she has the potential to be very good. She does have that potential, because her stacks can build up very fast. Her heat is not that hard to get, because 4-4-2 counter it most likely is not that hard to get. 4-4-2 is gonna be a very good move. And you can use stance pressure more or less easily just because QCF4 is so good, guarantees 1-2, 4-4-2 is so good, and the stance moves always go into stance as well, like the wolf stance for example. And Heaven and Earth stance is like bonkers crazy, so yeah. So let's end this with this. Everyone, big thank you for watching. This was a very long vid actually. I thought it would be a little bit longer, it wasn't that long, but it was pretty long. So yeah, everyone, thank you for watching. This was a pretty fast speed lab, as I said. So if I missed something that people later discovered, my fault. But yeah, hopefully it was helpful, and till later.